Hi friends, this is Denario Research and welcome to the part number 5 of XRP Telegram bot tutorial. Today we are going to finish implementation of the deposit function. In the previous video you saw how XRP transactions work, and today we'll play with database in order to save transaction and update users balance. But before we are able to save any transaction, we need a schema for it. We'll create transaction schema in the same way as we did for users. So we can go to users.js, copy users schema code, paste it into newly created file transactions.js and edit it. That would be much simpler. Firstly, let's rename schema object. Let's call it transaction schema. And what we need from the existing object. Username. We'll leave this record because we should know the user who made this transaction. Destination tag. I don't think it is required. Balance is not required as well. Timestamp we'll leave because we need to know when transaction was made. And let's add few more fields. The first one would be transaction type. So that could be either deposit or withdrawal or transfer between users. So type, that would be string, and it is required. The next one is sender name. So let's call it from. This would be string, and it can be either username for transfer between users or XRP ledger address if it is deposit. Of course, to, so it's receiver of the transaction. It might be another user or some another XRP address. Transaction ID, let's call it TXID. It is also string and it is required, and it would be not required. It would be optional field only for transactions in the blockchain. So either withdrawal or deposit. We'll have no transaction ID for transfers between users. And finally, amount. Amount, it is number and it is required. Great. And last but not least, let's finish renaming. Transaction, and instead of user, we need transaction schema and transaction here. Okay, great. Let's save and switch to app.js. Let's import our transactions model. Okay, we can copy this and edit. Transactions equals to require models user models transactions. Okay, great. And let's go to this part of the deposit function when we have matched tags, and let's create our first transaction. Let transaction equals to new transactions, and here we need to provide all data we described in transactions.js. Let's start with timestamp. Timestamp colon date.now divided by 1000 because we need timestamp in Unix format, and rounded. Mass round. Okay. Then transaction type. This is deposit transaction, so let's call it deposit. Okay. Username. It equals to our username variable. So this is the easiest part. Then transaction ID. we can pull it from the element object, and it is element.id. Okay, sender address or from equals to element specification source address. Similarly, destination address, we can copy this part, paste it, and instead of source it is destination address. And finally, we need to provide amount. Amount equals to element specification destination. So let's copy this, paste it here, amount dot value. Well, that's all. We have created our transaction, and now let's save it to database. tx.save. In a callback, we have only one parameter, which is error, and let's implement that callback. If we have any error, let's print it. Console log error. Else, let's print some message that transaction was saved. Console log tx was saved. Okay, let's save everything and test how this works. I am in the Telegram and I'm going to make deposit. So let's type deposit. Here is our destination tag. Let's copy it and use in the sender. Well, now we are ready to make a test transaction. So node test send. I have provided already destination tag we need and hit enter. As you see here, I had syntax error because I added extra dot, but it is not required. Well, we have some error and let's try to fix that. The reason of the error is pretty simple. This variable is undefined because I have provided the route to the amount in a wrong way. Instead, we have to type element.outcome delivered amount.value. Okay, this time it should work. Let's save and repeat everything. Well, I have typed it in Telegram deposit received destination tag, and now I'm ready to send transaction. So let's run test send and let's see what happens. Transaction was sent and we have the message that transaction is successfully saved. Great. Let's go to database and look what happened in there. I have switched to mlab and now I see in our database XRP Telegram bot newly created collection which is called transactions and one document there. Let's see how this document looks like. This is our transaction. Let me expand the window. Okay, what we see here, document ID, this was added by the database. We cannot change that. Now timestamp, so date and time when transaction was made. Transaction type deposit, username who made this transaction, Denario research. Transaction ID, which was taken from the XRP ledger, from address to address, and amount. So we have just deposited 20 XRPs. Great. But we do not have any record for our users yet. So let's create them. When transaction is successfully saved, we need to check whether our user exists and update his balance, or if user does not exist, create new user with balance. So let's go to get destination tag function and copy this part of code. It will save us a lot of time. Paste it here and let's edit. So users find one will check in the database where the user exists. If we have any error, we'll print it. If user does not exist, here we'll create new user. Else, if user exists, we'll update his balance. So let's create variable new user. Let's call it user, and it equals to new users. And here we need to provide information about this user, which is described in users.js. But I think in order to avoid any issues with naming user here and user here, let's call this variable new user. Okay, now let's provide timestamp when user was created. We can copy this from the transaction part. Username, also we can copy from here. Then we need to provide destination tag. It equals to tag and balance. Balance equals to our transaction value. Let's paste it, but I want to convert it into flow. So parse float. Okay, and let's save it. New user dot save, and as usual we have callback with error parameter, and we can copy this. If we have error, we'll print it definitely. Else, we'll make a console log message and say that new user was created. Okay, new user was saved. Great. Let's save the code and test it. Time to make new deposit. Deposit. Enter our destination tag. Destination tag was copied to testsend.js, and we are able to send transaction. Okay, let's set one and see what happens. Let me remind you, we have to create new transaction, yes, and we have to create new user. Great. Now let's go to database. Now we have two collections, one for transactions and another one for users. We made two transactions, that is why we have two documents here and one document in users collection. Let's see how it looks like. We got timestamp, username Denario research, my destination tag 289, and my current balance 20 XRPs. Fantastic. Well, if user exists, it is not null, we need to update his balance. So user.update. Let's take his balance, and it equals to current balance. So user.balance plus deposit amount. Let's copy it and paste. Also, we need to implement callback. As usual, we have only one parameter, error, and let's implement it in the way as we typically do. If we have error, we'll send console log message. If we do not have any error and deposit was made successfully, we need to send some message into Telegram. CTX reply. So the message would be about his deposit. So let's copy the deposit amount paste it here, and let's add some text like some amount of XRP was deposited. Great. And let's copy this message and use it for newly created user. Great. Let's save and test how deposit works. Okay, deposit, hit enter. As you see, we have again the same destination tag as we expected. And now let's switch to test sender and send test transaction. Okay, let's send test transaction. And transaction was done, and we have message in Telegram. Now let's check it. And this message says that 20 XRPs was deposited. Finally, we have finished deposit function. Thumbs up if you like this video, subscribe to my channel if you want more videos, and leave your questions in the comment section below. Bye!